Today we're going to talk about 10 fun facts about money. I am Anthony Diego and let's start. Alright, here we go with the 10 fun facts about money. Number 1. The dollar sign was first used in 1785. Did you know that? The official adoption of the dollar sign in the US can be traced back to 1785 when it evolved from the Spanish symbol for the pesos. It is believed the dollar sign originated from the abbreviation PS, which was used to indicate Spanish pesos in the Americas. Gradually, the S came to be written over the P, eventually morphing into the dollar sign we know today. Yes, and that was number 1. Now we go to number 2. Did you know that paper money enabled the international trade? The first known banknote was first developed in China during the Tang and Song dynasties. Once the shift to paper money had occurred, international trade began to increase. Use of paper money allowed Chinese merchants to travel thousands of miles along the Silk Road because they did not have to carry coins, which were much heavier. Paper was both an exchange element as well as a factor for further intercultural exchange. Currency value began to depend on the strength of a particular country's government or monarchy, and before long, currency wars had started. Another money fact is that in the 21st century, 2 new forms of currency has launched. Mobile payment technology and virtual currency are 2 new forms of money that launched in the 21st century. Mobile payments are used to pay for products and services through a smartphone or tablet, while virtual currency is a type of unregulated digital currency that is not issued or controlled by a central bank. It is a digital representation of value that functions as a medium of exchange. For example, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, a virtual currency designed to act as money and a form of payment outside the control of any one person, group, or entity, thus removing the need for the third-party involvement in financial transactions. This type of currency may be used to buy physical goods and services, but may also be restricted to certain communities, such as for use inside an online game. Some countries, including China, India, Nigeria, and the Bahamas, have already rolled out digital currencies. Others, like Sweden and Japan, are preparing for possible rollouts. Alright. So now we go to number 4. Only 8% of the world's currency is in cash. The vast majority of the world's currency exists in electronic form. Economists estimate that coins and banknotes make up just 8% of the world's currency. The rest sits on a computer hard drive in electric bank accounts all over the world. Because of the worldwide acceptance of the internet and online payments, people are making and spending money without actually touching it. But don't make the mistake though, cash continues to be important. Ultimately, cash may in fact disappear, but it is mostly a question of where and when. While it may disappear in some countries, it might remain in others. And if it ultimately happens in 50 or 100 or more years, it won't matter much to anyone who's alive today, so don't have to worry about that. And now we go to number 5. The euro is the second most important currency in the world. The European Central Bank, which sets monetary policy for the Eurozone, has more independence from national governments than other central banks because it oversees the entire continent's monetary policy. That independence helps keep the euro strong. Since the euro has introduced in 1999, living standards and employment have increased. Euro economies have also been protected from exchange rate volatility. Today, the euro is shared by over 340 million Europeans. As of December 2019, with more than 1.3 trillion in circulation, the euro has one of the highest combined values of banknotes and coins in circulation in the world. And number 6, global debt is dangerously high. The current global debt figure reached a record $303 trillion in 2021, according to the Institute of International Finance. This was a huge jump from the 226 trillion figure in 2020, representing the biggest one-year debt surge since the Second World War. The World Bank says that our current world debt wave is the fourth since 1970 and is a result of various factors including COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. Now we go to number 7. Did you know that there was a $100,000 bill? Man, I would want that. The largest note ever printed was the $100,000 gold certificate printed from December 1934 through January 1935. It was not intended for general use. They were only used in transactions between Federal Reserve banks and the US Treasury. The use of the $100,000 bill ended in the 1960s. Since that date, many of the 42,000 examples printed were destroyed by the government, and as a result, only a few are known to exist today. All of the surviving notes have been accounted for and are owned by the United States government. You see the person on the bill? That is President Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president served during World War I. And number 8. There is a reason why the US dollars are green. Dollar bills weren't always green. Colonial money, for example, was stained with black or red ink. It wasn't until the Civil War the government started using green ink to print paper money, where it got the name greenbacks. The color was selected because the ink didn't fade or easily decompose, which protected against counterfeiting. Money facts number 9. Did you know that the first ATM was launched in 1967 in London? Yeah, John Shepherd Barron is credited with the invention of the automated teller machine, which we know as the ATM. He pitched the device to the British bank Barclays. It was accepted immediately. How is that for entrepreneurship? The first ATM was set up at a branch of Barclays Bank on a street in Enfield, London, in June 1967. The first one in the US was launched in September 1969 at the Chemical Bank branch in Rockville Center in New York. In 1970, a British engineer called James Goodfellow created the concept of a personal identification number, which we know as the PIN. And last but never the least, did you know that the tech boom is nothing compared to the gold rush? Thanks to the tech boom, rent and grocery bills in San Francisco have rocketed 21% above the national average. But that is nothing compared to the gold rush. In the 1850s, a dozen eggs could cost you the equivalent of $90 in today's money. A pickaxe, the equivalent of $1,500, and a hotel room upwards $300,000 a month. Can you imagine that? So when you compare the tech boom to the gold rush of the mid-1800s, it is a small change. Imagine the joy of the woman who made $18,000 by baking and selling pies in the gold fields, or of the foresighted man who arrived in San Francisco in July 1849 with 1,500 old newspapers, which he sold to miners hungry for news from back east for $1 each. Levi Strauss, a Jewish immigrant from Germany, identified the need for tough clothing in the gold fields. How is that for another entrepreneurship? Their equivalents today, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, Microsoft's Bill Gates, Larry Page and Sergey Brin of Google, and so on, have made billions rather than millions. And unlike most of the hapless gold miners, their employees have reaped considerable rewards. By comparison, their costs of living are much more bearable. Plain and simple, the US hasn't witnessed an economic impact like the gold rush before or since.